Hello, I'm Dale Matthews, and boy, was today a busy day. Here's Mike Jones to confirm that. Confirm or deny,
Yeah,
Mr. Jones?
I concur. Yes, it was it was one for the books.
It definitely was. You'll be glad you're watching this show. By the way, you may mention this again. Kjo did a story about what happened today at the weekly business session.
Mm.
Mike, you were at that meeting. Did you know that the highlight of the session was that they appointed a couple of people to committees?
Mm.
Right.
Yes, I know that sort of thing was going on there, but
Was that the news of the day?
no, it didn't really move the needle in terms of rating the stories that came out of it. But you know what?
Sanitize for your protection.
Yeah, what you think about what happened today depends a lot on your politics. If you're a government line sort of person, this is exactly what you would hope would happen in a situation like this.
But don't both sides want funding for the sheriff?
No, Dan. No, they don't. They don't, and this is the lie. And I'm sick of putting up with it, quite frankly. That the other side actually wants to fund law enforcement. They do want to fund law enforcement under the conditions that they approve of, but they don't want to fund law enforcement under any other conditions. It has to, there's a certain set of criteria must be in place for them to fund law enforcement. Preferably the money comes from you in the form of some sort of a levy. I'm convinced now that what they're moving towards is a strategy that will deliver HJR 21, which is the $2 bill. I'm more and more convinced of that all the time. I heard this theory a couple of times and I went, yeah, I don't know. I'm more and more convinced of it all the time because you can't show me another scenario that makes as much sense as that. These people are in pursuit of something which they are reluctant to talk about, and they are lying that these circumstances for using this particular set of money is not correct. You couldn't have a more correct circumstance for the use of this money that came to us like manna from heaven. And, it's almost as though somebody was praying for some money to come to help fund the sheriff. And then boom, out of the sky, boom, it happened. And yet,
that's no. For some people, bad news.
Probably, really, I think the roads are more important. That money really needs to fund roads instead of, I know that, it is kind of an emergency, but listen, you just don't understand the complexity of this.
That's right. That's really what they keep saying. Right. It's like you're in your house and your spouse accidentally starts a fire on the oven. Well, this thing's going to happen like this. Sweetheart, go get the CO2 container out of the car. Well, now, wait a minute. Yes, this is in flames, and the whole place may go up. But what if one of these days we've got a problem with the car, and then there won't be any what? Go get the dang thing.
Yeah, it's just completely silly, and I hope that is a part of the video that we have. I'm not sure that it's there, but there is one particular part where Simon Hare is really, really condescending to Margaret Goodwin. And he does this thing where, well, if you were a full-fledged member of this, the body here, then, I can understand you, but you're not. So, blah, blah, blah. It was,
this meeting
whole thing was just
quite a while, so it's not all here, but we're giving you, as we did when Carl Wilson and company were talking with Lipsick, we're giving you, I think, the best parts. But yeah, there are a couple. One of the other parts that's missing is when Cheryl Walker says, She kept inserting herself in on the public hearing, like she wanted to do it after each person spoke, and sandwich between her comments, which you don't do that at a public hearing. And at one point she said, well, I want to dispel the, Mike, what was it? I want to
ignorance.
I want to dispel the ignorance. I want to dispel the ignorance.
She was dispersing ignorance, but she wasn't necessarily dispelling it.
Well, we're going to play back this for you as much as we can fit into one evening, but it was the strangest public hearing I've ever been to, and I've been to a lot of public hearings. In this one, the entire budget committee was there. A public hearing is when one of the definitions, you hear the public, right? And so they asked the committee members of the budget committee what they thought, and then they took a vote, and then they sent them all home, and then about 15 minutes later, they allowed public comment after the vote and after those guys were gone.
Yeah.
What the kind of public hearing is this?
On the supplemental budget thing, I thought, what is going on here?
They had no answer when we brought that up. No answer about how they would do that. I've never seen anything like it. And these guys have sunk pretty low, but that's okay. So here's Margaret with the improbable nickname Peggy. Well, you know how Margaret and Peggy were. And she's trying to get the fellow committee members to commit to the idea that committee members commit, you know what I mean, that they should, because it's an emergency, danger, Will Robinson, that they should try to fund part of the sheriff department with this. Try. Here's what she had to say. We're going to break in when we want to, but she spoke for a good 12 and a half minutes.
Regardless of how the money is actually allocated, the purpose of a supplemental budget hearing is to provide transparency into the decisions that are made by the county government budget decisions. And in the interest of transparency and accountability of citizens, I believe that it is important to include this money to make citizens aware and the public has the right to know that these funds were received after the budget was adopted, and there are available.
She doesn't enunciate very well, sorry.
Well, yeah, the audio is not good.
Thank you.
Please state your motion.
Yes, my motion did not actually say how the fund would be allocated. I was going to do that in the follow-up motion. The reason that I separated it into two motions is because there is a possibility that the members of the budget committee might be in favor of including the revenues in the budget for the sake of transparency, but they might not agree with how it's allocated.
So I'm just looking for you to restate your motions, because I'm pretty sure that those Title I dollars are included in what was presented from our budget officer in the extension of secure rural schools.
No, these funds have nothing to do with secure rural schools. No, these are not secure. These are Title I for service standards that are available.
Just want to make sure they weren't accounted for.
No.
Right. Those specific funds that Margaret is talking about were received at the beginning of June in 2015. So it's not appropriate to include them as revenues in the current fiscal year because they were received in the prior fiscal year. They were received and deposited in June of 2015. So they are recorded as revenues in our financial statements as actual receipts, but for budgetary purposes, it was just too late to incorporate them into the budget for the prior year. That would be the 14-15 fiscal year. Because
what? Is this an emergency? Really?
You know, I mean, this is very interesting because, because of the fact that, it came a little bit too late to be considered for the budget last year, well, then we're just not going to put it on any budget anywhere. So no one would, reading the budget would ever know that this
only
windfall came in.
reason the only reason anybody in that room knew that this was happening, as far as I know, is because we told you that this was coming up. This is what she meant by transparency. Hey, wait a minute. You know, this money came in. Why aren't we using this for anything? And people packed into the place. It's kind of like that dopey paper that guy puts out that says, Cheryl Walker's doing a great job, and the only reason anybody heard about this is because badcounty.com alerted the populace. Yeah, buddy, that's what we do, and they show up.
Yeah.
There's nobody that's watching out that's trying to tell you what the heck's going on. They were surprised that so many people showed up. You could see it, that they were surprised, and there's 10 reasons why we can't possibly do anything. Oh, really?
It's unfortunate for me on my end, and I hope that it's better for people watching, that her audio is not good for me at all. I'm barely, it's not really intelligible that well for me. Now, luckily I was there, and I'll probably be able to pick up enough to know what's going on there.
Well, the rest of them are just about at their maximum level, and you don't want them any higher. She's speaking a little bit lower, and listening to the audio tracks provided by the county is not a whole lot better because the mic system there is not terrific. But in a long segment like this, it keeps drifting in and out of synchronization. So sorry, like this, like a Japanese movie or what we're doing.
The thing is that once the county posts the actual video, the problem is that our initial audio grab, which is usually fine for a 3-minute segment with somebody standing up at the podium, does not. The problem is that the live stream is probably operating on a variable bit rate, so it goes up and down, and so it doesn't sync to time the same way your video does. But once they put out the actual video of it, that should be pretty close match, I would think.
And we wanted to show this to you right away, and they won't let us. They will not let us, even though this is one of your prime sources of information. They won't let us hook into their audio. One of the TV station guys showed up the other day and put a little recorder thing in the little back room. No problem. They absolutely will not allow us to do that, you see, because we're not media of any kind. This is going to change. Okay. More of Arthur O'Hare, the finance director.
One would hope.
Were received in June of 15. So it was just too late to incorporate them into the budgeted revenues of the prior fiscal year. However, they are part of the carryover. Everything received in the prior fiscal year becomes part of the fund balance for that year.
Nice and clear.
And so they're included, or they are in the actual financial statements as fund balance for the current fiscal year. Little bit of a timing issue there, which is why that makes that.
This is a lot of dancing on his part.
Yeah, too bad that we're in an emergency, huh? Because, the timing isn't quite right for an emergency. As far as this money that just dropped in out of heaven, we can't use it because the timing's a little bit wrong, Mike.
Yeah, both Simon Hare and this Arthur O'Hare guy. See, that's odd similarity. They were both dancing. I mean, this guy here was dancing, and he's not nearly as good a dancer as Simon is. Simon is an excellent dancer. When he gets up there and starts his mouth a rattling, he can make it all sound very coherent and stuff. When in reality, it's just double talk. It's to get you to get all confused and go, you know much better than I do. That's the whole point of his blather. And
their salaries, and this guy, their salaries are partly based on explaining to us, not just Mike and I, all of us, in a way that we can understand. And to the extent that they don't do that, then they ought to be fired. We're the boss.
Yes. Well, you know what? And and after today's thing, and maybe that'll be more clear towards the end here. I'm thinking, the last Simon Hare recall thing. It was exhausted essentially on the 31st of March, I believe, and that's it. Toast. I really think this thing needs to be fired up again. So if you're harboring such a desire out there in TV land, please relaunch this thing. That guy needs to be checked. It's not going to be enough to get rid of 2 of these people, because you may not get 2 people in there that are perfectly inclined to move in a completely opposite direction. Right. This guy has to go too. We're going to see that
proven here on this video. Oh my gosh, display driver, whatever.
Adjustment, if we were to make an adjustment, would end up being an adjustment to beginning fund balance in the current budget and probably contingency in the current budget. So unless we wanted to actually spend those monies.
Oh, we don't want to do that.
There's no budgetary impetus to incorporate that into the spending part, unless we wanted to spend that, unless we wanted to move those funds.
And they don't.
And they don't. You're right.
So anyway, the purpose is that those specific funds were received in June of 15, last fiscal year, not part of this fiscal year as far as budgeted revenues.
So they just disappear?
Excuse me, as I understand it, this fiscal year goes from
July 1 of 2015, to June 30th, 2006.
So those funds were not included in the budget for either fiscal year. They're not included in the budget.
Not included in the budget, that is correct. We were expecting basically the shared receipts portion was $51,000.
Oh man, sorry, bud.
And that's what we actually received. That's what we put into the budget for the current fiscal year. And then, as I mentioned, the extension was we were notified of the extension rather late in the budget process. We'd already crafted our budgets and had them available for the public, and then. But we weren't sure exactly how much we were going to receive from that extension of SRS funding.
This is not the SRS funding.
Well, it actually is. It is both, yes. The forest receipts and the receipts from the BLM is what we've normally been calling SRS, but actually the receipts from the Forest Service are also SRS.
Now, wait a minute. Are these legitimate American dollars, or are they Dutch guilders? Euros?
Listen, to me, all of this blather, it doesn't make any difference. The bottom line is that this money is Title I money, and that is the money that we are entitled to make a decision about how to spend it, either give it to Public Works for roads, or we can potentially use it via House Bill 4175 for the purpose of funding rural patrols. Now, here's the favorite argument of everybody is, oh, you're robbing from Peter to pay Paul. No, this money hasn't even been allocated yet to Public Works. And even if it was, this was a windfall. It came out of nowhere. It's not like we're stealing road dollars that were placed there from gasoline tax receipts, which is the normal way of funding that account. This money was just dropped on us, and so listen.
But they have to get past the public process here. They have to get past so they can put it into the road funds, so it cannot be spent on sheriff's patrols. Cannot? No, they don't want it spent on sheriff's patrols.
Well, actually, it won't matter if they put it in the Public Works Department's accounts. It won't matter. We could still pull it out with 4175, but it becomes more of a political issue then, because now you're robbing from Peter. to pay Paul. Instead,
Well, then
you're
don't
just
give
taking
the dang money
this
to
money
Peter to
and-
begin with.
Yes, exactly. And that essentially is Margaret's point. It's like, listen, you were praying for money to fund the sheriff. Here it is. Oh, no. The entire board, the three members of the Board of County Commissioners and the three members or the two other members of the Budget Committee all voted no on the use of that money for funding the sheriff.
This is
These
an
people-
emergency. It's an emergency.
It's an you know what? These people really need to explain their logic, because we have been talking about using road dollars for a long time, and their argument always is, well, you know, there isn't that much in the Roads and Bridges Reserve Fund, and what if an earthquake happens? What if a flood happens and it washes a bridge away? Okay, that's a good point. But this money over and above all of the overages in that account that they had came out of nowhere. They didn't expect it. The Forest Service said, here's $1 million.
$1 million,
And
$1.95, $1 million.
Right. $1 million. And that specific money was available via HB 4175 to send over to the Sheriff's Department for use in rural patrols, which everybody says what they want. They want a greater presence of the Sheriff's Department out in the greater county.
Now, one of the
I mean,
that we're not playing back on this video is, well, you know, this is Cheryl again. This is a short-term thing, like a year and a half from the governor taking over would not be short-term, but okay. Well, we can, okay.
Right.
Now match that with the sheriff putting deputies around the area, and they would be available for emergency uses for 6 deputies for $200,000. So if you've got $1 million, that's 6 deputies times 5 years. There's a problem with this.
That's right.
It helps solve a problem.
But Simon let something sneak out today that I think he just realized while the meeting was going on. He said, well, you know, we're going to be searching around when we set up this thing with the state. We're going to be searching around for funds to use to put up for them to match, and maybe we'll use this money then. And so, wait a second.
Yeah, I thought. Now wait a minute. You just said we can't use it
for that,
but now we're going to use it.
Yeah. Well, wait a minute though. This isn't general fund money. You can't just listen. It's come down. It has a designation. It either goes to Public Works for roads, or it goes for rural patrols. You can't say, "Here's our money, match it." That's a bunch of hooey.
So he's actually
No,
a good one, Mike. He's actually was talking about going ahead and expending that money to get a match, and then it's all gone. Well, we can't spend it because, you know, I know the kitchen's on fire, but one of these days, maybe the car will catch on fire. One of these days.
I'm telling you, these people are insane. Okay. Now, clearly, I understand that they have another agenda that they're just not telling us about, but I pretty well got it figured out. But they're insane. Okay. They believe this is the type of politician that I hate. They believe that it's imperative to deceive the public for their own good, because ultimately, they don't know what's good for them. What we need to do is we need to extract a lot more money out of them via taxes. I mean, not just a little, but a lot more out of them in taxes. And then they'll all be better off for it.
And the commissioners will have
right, and they'll have control of the money, so everybody wins. Yay!
Just got to insert
in their world. That's how
tomorrow,
it is.
the most important meeting of the week. They're going to have people come in from the Illinois Valley Community Development Organization and ask for more grant money. Remember the guys that were going to create 90 full-time family wage jobs from putting a plaque on a rock? They're flush with success. Look at how much success they got from that. This is our financial management in this county.
it's utter insanity. It is utter complete.
Really have an
insanity.
opinion, Mike?
Yes, I do. And you know, I mean, that's the other money that could be made available were
Yes.
the will to exist. Is economic development money. That's another $400,000 a year that you
Yes.
could just say, well, you know what? It's more important for the sheriff to have this to help foster economic development in our area because safety is an issue.
That's
well,
12
wait a minute.
extra deputies, 12 extra deputies every year. 12.
Yes. Well, is that at the retired deputy rate that you're talking about?
Yes.
Yeah. So listen, the bottom line is the only thing that's stopping us from having much better, I'm not saying it's never going to be optimum if you ask these people, but the only thing that is stopping us from having better law enforcement presence
Three
are
people.
these people. 3 people. Yeah, these 3 people. Well, but they have a bunch of little lieutenants out there running around too.
One of
The
them,
bottom line.
Wally Hicks is there too, but Wally Hicks is there every step
Yeah.
of the way, telling them, "Oh, what you're doing is completely legal."
I'm telling you.
Go ahead.
Yeah, the entire crew, not just these commissioners, but every one of the people that serves in there and comes in there and spouts their line, they're all garbage. You guys are what's wrong with this county. Okay,
Okay, I was going to talk
go.
about the elected officials compensation committee. I'll tell you more about it later on the next show or the one after that. But at today's elected officials and this is only for elected officials, and what will they be paid? The EOCC came up with the solution that since they use Simon Hare as an example, since he's been in office for so long, that people who stay in office for 6 years, they deserve a raise because they've been doing such a great job.
Yes.
Starting with Simon Hare. The longer he's in office, and at the end, they let me speak. Now, J.J. Schofield never likes it when the public speaks. He always tries to block me. And I said, I tell you what, if you're going to give them a raise because of what a great job that they're doing, which I don't think is a good idea, there should be a flip side to that. That if they suggest something to us that gets 80% disapproval rating, they should get a demotion in pay. Then maybe we'll pay attention to that.
Yeah, that's good.
Here's Arthur O'Hare.
The shared receipts, back up a bit, the shared receipts are the original legislation from 1937, whenever that original legislation from way back when actually.
Why are you telling us this?
1893, President Harrison or something, but the forest receipt piece comes from the USDA Forest Service. The BLM receipts come from the Department of Interior, Bureau of Land Management. 2 separate funding sources. Under the shared receipts, we received $51,000 from the Forest Service. We received $2 million from BLM. We received $51,000 for roads, a little bit more for county schools. When SRS got extended, that upped both sides, both the BLM side and the Forest Service side, to where in the Forest Service side we received approximately $1 million for county roads. A little bit more, of course, went to county schools. There was a chunk of that went to Title III.
Okay, does that explain it well enough about why they're not going to give the $1 million to the sheriff? Because of something that happened in 1857, Mike.
Yeah, you know what? It's so convoluted, but you know, none of any of what he said takes anything away from the point that Margaret made, which is, here's this money, it's sitting there. What are you going to do with it? You know, that's the point. And they're dancing around the issue how, well, it's not going to be accounted for in the budget here because blah, blah, blah. Okay, who cares? Who cares? Here's the money. Yeah, here's the money. You can use it for this purpose. Are you going to do it? Do we really have an emergency, or are you just full of crap? Well, And the answer to that question was yes.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. 3 bags full.
Yes.
But yeah, it's a little bit intertwined there, the whole program.
But we did receive $1 million
Yes,
over and above what was budgeted.
correct. That is correct. Yes.
So my motion is that let me amend my motion then, since it is not, that the money is not,
Not revenue in this.
it's not revenue this fiscal year. Then let me make a different motion. I move to amend this,
Just a minute, we have a motion on the floor, would you like to make a motion to rescind that one?
I move to either amend or rescind. All right, I'll rescind that, make a new motion.
And the person who seconded,
Yes.
and that previous motion just rescinded.
I move to amend 2015-16 fiscal year, Justine County supplemental budget, to allocate the $1 million in unforeseen revenues to the sheriff's department to be used for patrols to offset anticipated budget shortfalls in the coming years.
Look at Keith.
Madam Secretary.
Silence.
I'll second.
Discussion, please. Commissioner Harris.
So I can understand that we're gathering information here, so things can change, but I thought your original intent was to just include the revenues from the previous year and this year available to allocate. So you just, I thought there was a 2-part objective at first, and I didn't disagree with that, to just capture that revenue so that we recognize it in year. Unfortunately, your motion tied it to an appropriation, which I can't support. So I could have supported capturing the first motion, and I think your intent was, but I think my position is fairly unwavering on not allocating it to the sheriff's office for those funds.
That was why I originally made 2 motions, because I felt that there would be people who would support reporting it for transparency's sake, but not allocating it to the way. However, apparently, the reporting is not appropriate to the current fiscal year because it was actually relevant previously, even though it was never included in that budget for this budget. So the allocation apparently cannot go into the supplemental budget. I mean, the receipt of the revenue cannot go into the supplemental budget because it's too late. But the allocation is really what I think is important. And the reason that I think that this is important is because our sheriff's department is primarily funded from SRS funds, which are likely to end next year or at least be significantly reduced.
Maybe.
So we know that we have significant anticipated budget shortfalls coming. And the prudent thing to do in that case is to set money aside to offset the budget shortfall. In this case, we got $1 million in windfall revenue that was totally unanticipated. And this is a windfall by definition. A windfall is a large amount of money that comes in that was not anticipated. So these are windfall revenues. And because this is a windfall, because this money was totally unanticipated, not included in the budget, this money can be allocated to the sheriff's department without taking anything away from public works, because this money was never in the public works budget to begin with. And this is sort of a unique situation because we don't get a windfall every year. And if we don't do this in this supplemental budget, then in next year's fiscal year budget, this $1 million will simply appear as part of the beginning balance in the public works reserve fund. So at that point, any proposal to allocate that money over the sheriff's department will be met with the customary refrain, that will be right, Peter K. Paul. But in the current fiscal year, because that money never belonged to Peter, it was never part of people's budget, there's clearly no question of robbing Peter if we give that money to Paul instead. So the commissioners are currently considering asking the government to declare a public safety fiscal emergency. If we have an emergency, a real emergency, we would be allocating every available resource to deal with it. That's how you deal with an emergency. And if we were to receive $1 million windfall, which we did, we would obviously put that money towards addressing the emergency. Now,
Hello?
E4175 was enacted to give counties like ours, counties that are most at risk for public safety, a tool to be able to use some of their own money that's normally dedicated to them to bail themselves out with some of their own money. If we don't use the tool that the legislature gave us, even with the added incentive of $1 million windfall, if we don't use our own bucket to bail us out, why would any responsible government bail us out with other people's money?
Good point.
So what was their vote, Mike?
Everybody doesn't like this. She was the only one that voted for it. You know what? My wife was at home sending me text messages going, this gal is fantastic. Who is this person? You know? And I was, silently fist pumping the whole time she's talking about this, but I was getting more and more angry at the same time because I see what she's being faced with, and that is a brick wall of moronic stupidity. And it just it takes something out of you. I just became very angry that here these people now actually. To call Simon a moron or stupid is not really true, because he is crazy like a fox in this thing. He's manipulating this thing to get to his objective without ever stating what it actually is. And these other guys are just dumb players along on this train. I think if you got Cheryl drunk, she would probably reveal to you what the truth is. But you're more likely to get Simon drunk and have him spill the beans. This just was everything that is wrong with government on display. And you inject sanity into the middle of it, and it looks so dissimilar to everything around it. It's just a major contrast. It's a bold color difference, as it were.
Well, here's a bold color difference from some guy that was at the meeting.
Mike Jones, Friends Pass. I had some prepared statements here today that were along the lines that Margaret Goodman talked about. The problem as I see it is there is a political agenda on this entire board. And that agenda is do not alleviate the emergency, because that's not in line with the agenda that we want. What we want is an emergency so we can club people and get them to acquiesce to giving more funds to government. Okay. So there was $1 million that came in. That $1 million was something that no one was expecting. That money can be used for the sheriff. As Mark Sullivan said, either we have a public safety emergency or we don't. So Simon Hare was very good at the double talk today, and Mr. O'Hare over here, same deal. Trying to escape the fact that here's a viable option, and it's not on your agenda to use that option. It is not part of your thinking to use that option. It is not part of your thinking to fund public safety. That's very clear, because you have an option to do it and you choose not to. Okay, that's your choice, and everybody knows it. This is manipulation. So we'll go with the state coming in here and developing an entity And I assume that you saw Carl Wilson's comments. He says, I would not sign this contract. This is full of ambiguities. This is going to set up an entity here that is going to come in here and tell us what to do. Okay, now that is wrong. You have an option. You can take this money and give it to the sheriff. You choose not to. That's your agenda. That's what you want to do. And somehow that fits with the government apparatus agenda. It has nothing to do with what the people want. Thank you.
Matthews?
Well, that's the end of your emergency. Good thing that we've got a better relationship with the state than we had before.
Who are you and where are you from?
Oh, I think I'm Dale Matthews and I'm from Grants Pass.
Please submit your comments to the budget.
Yes, that's what I'm doing. Thank you. We've got a pretty good relationship with the state now, and we send them videotapes or links to our videos. Once they see today's meeting, we won't stand a chance convincing them that this is an emergency and you have our best interests in mind. In fact, you don't really care what we say, do you? At least you're looking at it today. That's a big move forward. We've been to public hearings before, over the years. We've seen lots of public hearings. This was a strange public hearing. First, you had the whole budget committee here that could listen to what we have to say about, it says here, Josephine County supplemental budget for fiscal year 15-16. And then you send them home. Now they're not listening to any of our comments during this public hearing. Cheryl Walker wanted to jump in after each comment and say something during a public hearing. This isn't a public hearing at all. You've already taken a vote. We've been at public hearings before. This is not the way that they're run. I mean, you can run them any way you want to for the next couple of months, but then it's all over. So,
Mr. Matthews, are you wasting your 3 minutes if you wish to comment on the budget? This is the hearing. You have an opportunity to speak on the budget. This is the hearing. You wish to comment.
any more? So, it's a shame that we had this windfall profit, this windfall money that came in, and you deliberately decided not to spend it on your emergency. Now we all know. And there may be a few people here who still don't have a clue, but the rest of us know. So tonight on our show, we're going to play back all the things that Margaret Goodwin had to say and your answers to it. But you can't hoodwink us anymore. That's the end for you, all of it.
Well,
One hope.
that's the end for them.
I certainly hope that's the case. Yeah, I hope that's the case.
It's in danger. They're put.
Yeah.
Well, why is it that the people who opposed? We asked the sheriff this. Why is it the people who opposed, including Mike and myself, the idea of forcing another levy on us, are the ones that are getting up and saying, "Let's fund the sheriff. Here's the money. You've got the money. It's not robbing from anybody to give to anybody. It's giving." They are deliberately putting us in danger to achieve a political agenda.
Yeah, and you know, I noticed that there were a number of people there who are, I know for a fact, are levy pushers, and they were like, "Oh no, we can't do this. No, that's a bad idea. You can't do it." You know, it's amazing. All of these people are on the same page. They all understand, even the rank and file voters that think this way. They understand what's going on. You must force the people into a levy situation or a taxing district situation or HJR 21. That's a dream of theirs, to bump it up to $2 a thousand, and then they can start working on increasing from there. But that's where we're at with these people. It's not funding the sheriff. It's the method by which you do it that is important to these people. And if it doesn't end up long-term being a rise in your property taxes, they are not interested at all.
Now, Mike, how in the world are these three characters, and add in Wally Hicks, who has experience in Salem, and add in Arthur O'Hare, the finance director, how are they going to go to the governor and say, well, this is an emergency, we need your help, when the governor then sees these clips where they had $1 million, not $1.95,
Yeah.
and they turned it down?
Yeah, well, here's a problem with that. I believe that the governor and crew are inclined in exactly the same fashion as these people. They don't care that there's been a manipulation here. They're the type of people that are going to force you to do what they want you to do, but it's for your own good. They're the same type of people. It's the same type of thinking. This is what's going on here. These people, and listen, we can't be trusted with the information. Simon can't tell us that he's doing this great thing for us. Cheryl can't tell us how kind she's being to us by forcing us into this situation. She's doing it for our own good, and we are just too stupid and hillbilly to understand it.
Well, this part of it wasn't even on today's agenda. And if we hadn't brought it up, and a couple other people, they spread the news. If we didn't bring it up, that place wouldn't have been packed and nobody would have said anything. Now, I just showed two of them, but there were plenty of people who talked. And Kjo says, well, that didn't even happen. Sanitize for your protection. We've got to keep watching these people. But Mike, what is the solution for our audience out there? What's the solution to this kind of thinking? What do you believe?
You know what? It's political awareness, for one. Listen, on badcounty.com, you're seeing right behind Dale's left shoulder there's a candidates forum and a meet the candidates event and a couple of other situations where you can examine who is running and what they stand for. This is so critical. We cannot put another couple of people in there that think the same way these people do.
I believe even if they're on the borderline. Oh, well, I don't know. Maybe yes, maybe no. No, maybe it's some other election, but not this time.
These people, it's an insanity. I want people in there who will give it to you straight. Listen, if you don't want to take that money and give it to the sheriff's department, then give me the logical good reason why. They don't have one of those for this situation. It's pure insanity, double talk, bureaucratic speak. It is, they're diverting because, we'll talk about that on April 19th or whatever the heck it was when we fire up the budget committee. No, you won't. And by then you'll say, well, it's in the public works budget. We're not going to rob from Peter to pay Paul, blah, blah, blah. End of story. And again, Margaret Goodwin is outnumbered on the board. That's what's going to happen. This is just
Okay, very similar to the Supreme Court of the United States. You get two fiscal conservatives in there, and then there's Simon Hare. So that's two. And then Margaret Goodwin is there. That's three. And then I believe that it is possible for county commissioners to say, you've outlived your usefulness on this board. It would be 5-1. Even if it was 3-3, that would be cool.
Yeah. I think yes. And also, when it comes time to choosing a new board, you can stack it the way you want to. Let's just get it all out there on the table. This budget committee is stacked with people they like. They're never gonna get an outcome from that board that is in disagreement with what the Board of County Commissioners wants.
That's correct.
And that's by design. So
now, if you're happy with that, then there you go.
Yeah. So I fully say we put 2 fiscal conservative people in as commissioner, and then you stack the board with people that are thinking in the same line that you are, and then let's get some stuff done. That's how you do it.
It doesn't have to be people who think that the idea of another levy isn't a good idea for 4 years. Doesn't have to be that. But could it please be some people to say, when money comes down that we didn't expect and it's not been allocated, let's spend that on our most important urgent situation, our emergency situation. These guys don't want to do that. Okay, don't let the door hit you on the way out.
Yeah.
In fact, please do let the door hit you on the way out. That would be better.